thank you all for coming to the book launch of the Purveyor. I hope you enjoy it. Wait, are we good, Mo?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. All right. So Tara wants me to read the first chapter, so I will do that when she's ready. You ready? Okay. Chapter 1, Las Vegas, Nevada. Who would have ever dreamed that what started out as a dusty little water stop on a wagon trail would have turned into all of this? When my father encouraged me to invest in property here in the 1930s, I thought he was out of his mind, and the time had finally come to check him into the nearest retirement home. I had serious doubts, but he assured me this was the perfect place to put down roots and establish my name and reputation. She had a vivid recollection of what the area had looked like when she first arrived. Stepping out of her cherry red 1938 Lincoln Zephyr convertible sedan. Removing her sunglasses, she had watched an errant tumbleweed coming down the middle of the street, blowing directly across the toe of one of her high-heeled pumps. Immediately beginning to have her doubts, she even went so far as to wonder if perhaps her father was having a little fun at her expense, until she remembered he didn't have a sense of humor. Besides, he would never have steered his precious little girl wrong. Pursuant to his advice, she'd marched into the nearest real estate office and purchased enough land on which to build her empire. Pointing to a construction site up the street, she continued to reminisce. In 2000, they blew up the one building left from the first casino and resort to be built on the Strip back in 1941 to make room for that. I remember when the El Rancho first appeared. It was a gaudy little thing with an Old West theme, complete with a 50-foot neon windmill on the top of the main building. It only housed 4 gaming tables and 70 slot machines back then. The humans couldn't get enough of it, and once they started coming, they never stopped. It boggles the mind to see how quickly it grew into what it has become now. Though I have to admit, Daddy was right. Vegas must have been something special back then to see, he said as he reached for his vibrating phone on the desk, scrolling to check the new message that had just flashed across the screen. It most certainly was. CEO Harlow Thornhart stood with her back to her assistant, staring out over the spectacular Las Vegas skyline, her crimson eyes casting a sinister reflection in the glass. The window from her sleek, modern office penthouse suite afforded her the best view of the city, especially when the sun went down and the Strip sprang to life. From atop her privately owned building, she kept a watchful eye over humankind and creatures alike. In a city where 2 entirely different worlds mingled, one without knowledge of the other, she was the bridge that connected the realms. "Your new client is almost here," Sawyer called out, slipping the phone into the inner pocket of his jacket and fastening it closed. Crossing the room to the far wall, he entered a 6-digit code into a concealed pen pad and unlocked the secured walk-in wine cooler, one that housed a rare collection of unique libations. Pulling open the door, a loud hissing sound was heard, and a rolling fog emerged, eerily enveloping him from the waist down. "I was just notified by our driver that the limo is less than 10 minutes out," he added before stepping inside, wanting to choose something special for the occasion. "Who is it?" she asked, turning with her arms crossed. "Matthew Broussard, an extremely wealthy vampire from New Orleans," he replied, returning with 2 chilled bottles, one in each hand. Pursing his lips, he looked back and forth between them, pondering the choices before him. Which blood vintage do you think he would prefer? Young French prostitute or middle-aged Roman Catholic cardinal? Definitely the cardinal. Being from Louisiana, I'm sure he's sampled every French variety there is, and since we specialize in diversity, we will offer him something he is unaccustomed to enjoying. "Cardinal it is," Sawyer set the other aside and reached for a corkscrew. "How was your weekend?" she asked. Her assistant's blonde hair was just a shade lighter than it had been when she saw him last, indicating he had spent some time in the sun. There also seemed to be a little extra spring in his black wingtips that evening. "Wonderful," he gushed, filling 2 trumpet-styled wine glasses. "Mason and I flew out to Cali and stayed at this lovely little vineyard to celebrate our 20th anniversary. The inn was surrounded by 200 acres of the thickest groves of trees you have ever seen. We hiked deep into the woods and had the entire place to ourselves. Mason was sweet enough to take down a 12-point buck and bring me the still beating heart as a gift. It was so romantic. Words aren't enough to express how much I love that wolf. Harlow smiled. Sawyer Evans had once been her client once upon a time, coming to her in a last-ditch effort to find his happily ever after. It was hard enough for a werewolf to find a mate these days, but when you added that he was gay, it just made meeting and dating someone twice as difficult. Mason Rourke was Harlow's personal art dealer, and as soon as Sawyer had stepped foot into her office, she knew the two would be perfect for each other. Playing matchmaker was not her usual forte, but she had prided herself on bringing the two lovebirds together. Sawyer chose to give up his life in Seattle and move to Las Vegas to be closer to Mason at about the same time as Harlow's previous assistant had to be dismissed under less than ideal circumstances. The timing could not have been better. Not only was his loyalty and on-the-job performance unsurpassed by any other, but the pair had become the best of friends in the process. I'm glad to hear it. Stepping back to her desk, she asked, "What do we know about Mr. Matthew Brizard of New Orleans?" "Well, he's extremely wealthy, obviously. It looks like he joined the world of the diverse around the mid-1800s, but he got his financial start pirating during the Civil War, eventually moving on to discreet smuggling over the years. Recently, he has expanded his holdings by getting into real estate. He currently specializes in locating private and high-end properties for select well-to-do humans and members of the diverse." Harlow chortled at the term and remembered thinking it was a little pretentious when she first heard it used by a 4-foot-high Yeti in Tibet in reference to himself. He had been the smallest one she had ever encountered, obviously due to some genetic issue, but what he lacked in height, he made up for in confidence. His name was Chodak, and he wanted nothing more in the world than to teach others how to find inner peace through meditation. He had been shunned by his own kind because of his height, and was desperate to become part of a bigger community, yet he found himself mostly alone. One stormy night, while looking for a dry place to rest, he happened upon a sickly blind man in a hut in the middle of nowhere. The kindness he held in his heart prevented him from passing by when he heard the pitiful cries for help. Chodak nursed the man back to health, and in return, the man had taught him the secrets of finding an inner peace, no matter what challenges the outside world might be experiencing. The joy he received from that gift made him only want to share it with the world, so he wrapped himself up in clothing from head to toe, traveled to the nearest village, planted himself in the middle of the town square, and announced himself as a mystic guru. People flocked from miles around to learn from him, and word soon quickly spread of his gift. That was 200 years ago, and Chodak was still planted in that very village square, teaching new generations how to connect with their inner selves. Chodak was the first of many brave souls. Before the creatures of the world hid in the darkness, afraid of humans of what harm might inflict upon their kind. But times had changed, as they always do. The supernatural beings slowly emerged, calling themselves the diverse, as a way of identifying themselves to other non-humans. Most had chosen to discreetly acclimate to the world around them, becoming a part of it rather than trying to struggle against it. Their numbers were many, but they remained hidden out of fear, afraid of what might happen if humans learned of their existence. If truth be known, the world was a much better place with them. While some liked to stir up trouble, most used their unique gifts to make the world a better place for everyone. Any inkling as to what he's looking for? Honestly, I have no idea. Sawyer pulled down the front of his jacket and straightened his bow tie in the reflection of the nearby mirror hanging on the wall. He refused to give me or anyone else any details, saying he would only speak to you personally. Wonderful. Another high-maintenance client, she muttered. Well, at least I know up front to grossly overcharge him for being the pain in the ass he is inevitably going to be. She heaved a sigh. Show him in when he arrives. Whatever you say, boss. Sawyer cheerfully bounced off, whistling a lively tune as he went. Harlow took a seat at her desk and opened the drawer to her right, revealing a built-in mirror on a swivel. After smoothing back a few strands of her long, layered, raven-colored hair, she reached into the drawer, located a tube of crimson lipstick, and carefully applied it. Taking the time to check her eyeliner and mascara, she stopped and frowned when she noticed a few small wrinkles forming at the corners of her eyes. "What the hell is that?" she grumbled and tried to rub them away, but to no avail. "Really?" she scowled, shoving the mirror back down into the drawer and slamming it closed. Leaning back in her chair, she closed her eyes and took several deep breaths, trying to compose herself. As the new meditation app she downloaded on her phone had suggested, mentally preparing herself for their visitor, she straightened her back, crossed her legs, and positioned herself in a manner exuding extreme confidence, complete control, and absolute power. Dressed in a black business skirt suit, red was the only other hint of color she wore. It came from the soles of her extremely expensive Louis Vuitton 6-inch heels and her perfectly manicured fingernails and the newly applied lipstick on her lips. Sawyer opened the door a few minutes later and escorted her new client in. "Allow me to present Mr. Matthew Broussard of New Orleans," he announced. "It is a pleasure to meet you," she greeted while remaining seated, deliberately not extending her hand, instead choosing to simply look him in the eye. She wanted there to be no question as to who was in charge of this negotiation. "Miss Thornhart," he acknowledged in a thick Cajun accent, offering a gentlemanly dip of the head and a formal bow. "I can assure you the pleasure is all mine. I want to thank you for welcoming me so cordially, especially on such an impolite and uncivilized amount of notice. I hope my humble request for this appointment has not inconvenienced you in any way." "Not at all, Mr. Broussard." Harlow gestured for him to sit as Sawyer presented him with one of the glasses. "Roman Catholic Cardinal, for your pleasure." "Thank you, Miss Thornhart." He waved the crystal under his nose and it smiled, revealing his pearly white fangs. "This is quite a treat indeed." Sampling it, an expression of delight immediately appeared on his face. "This is an extraordinary vintage, and such a rarity these days. It must have cost you a small fortune. Allow me to offer my compliments to your inventor." "I provide only the best to my clients," she assured. Entwining her fingers, Harlow rested her head on her thigh. Rested her hands on her thigh. Yeah, and studied the details of the individual sitting across from her. Mr. Broussard was quite striking, fit and trim, easily passing for the age of 40, even though she sensed he was closer to 200 years old. Standing nearly 6'3", his dark brown hair was neatly trimmed in a trendy modern style. Resembling two sapphire gemstones, his stunning blue eyes were the kind human women undoubtedly went mad for. His perfectly flawless skin was tinged a slightly pink, indicating he had just fed just before his arrival. Dressed in an expensive, custom-tailored navy blue suit, complete with a red silk handkerchief folded and tucked neatly in the breast pocket, she had no doubt he had garnered attention from men, women, and the diverse alike, wherever he ventured. His mindfulness of formal etiquette and seemingly sense of propriety only added to his charm. "Please," holding up his glass, "won't you join me?" "Of course." Taking the cue, Sawyer handed his employer the other glass before taking a protective stance directly behind her. She lifted it in a toast and had a sip. Turning his attention back to her guest, she inclined her head and smiled before setting the glass aside. "Tell me, Mr. Broussard, what can I do for you?" "Right down to business. I can appreciate that. Well, Miss Thornhart, I am here in your lovely city of Las Vegas with a close friend for the weekend, and before we travel home to celebrate Mardi Gras, I would like to experience to make our stay memorable. If you are agreeable, I will need a few humans who we may freely feed upon, and ones who will not bring any unnecessary attention, if you take my meaning. Also, we will require a great deal of privacy. My friend and I like to get creative with our meals. I understand you have access to connections who may fit that bill, some who might even enjoy our company and unique mannerisms." "I do, but why not just take a couple off the street? After all, people go missing all the time. You're wealthy and can afford to rent a place near the desert where it's quiet. What are a few less humans in the world? There are billions, after all, and many who no one will ever miss. That was easy enough in the old days, he replied, nostalgia in his voice. But the absence of individuals tends to be noticed more now, as you well know. I cannot take even the slightest risk of my name being associated with any sort of unpleasantness. Reputation is everything in my business, a detail I am sure you of all people understand. I do. Well, you would need to understand that this is quite a tall order, and as you pointed out, on extremely short notice. This is why I came to the best in the business. I am the only one in the business, she corrected, and for that reason, it will cost you a great deal. I also have a certain non-negotiable stipulations I insist upon with each transaction. Of course, I'm willing to pay top price, provided we can come to agreement on terms. Harlow regarded him. For starters, there will be no non-consensual sex involved. I'm not a flesh peddler, Mr. Broussard. I will tell you here and now, I abhor rape, and if I find out anyone engages in that under the guise of Blackthorn Enterprises, or even thinks of mentioning my name in the same sentence, implying my involvement in any way, there will be a costly price. Mr. Broussard shifted in his seat and nodded. That condition is acceptable. What else? The humans live. If any one of them is hurt or dies on your watch, I will come for you. The mortals I provide will willingly offer their blood and happily participate in whatever games you wish to play, but not one hair will be harmed on one of them. If they come back to me with so much as a paper cut, I will hold you personally responsible. If such a thing does occur, understand that you will have sealed your own fate. She leaned forward for emphasis, and make no mistake, this devil always collects her due. Forgive my ignorance on the matter, but how do you manage to ensure absolute discretion if they are allowed to live? He questioned. That is my concern, not yours. I'm the best at what I do because I deliver where others cannot. These are my terms, and you are welcome to take them or leave them. It makes no difference to me either way. I understand. What about payment? Harlow eyed him intently. $50,000 and three. Her eyes drifted to the drawer with the mirror. Make that 4 pints of your blood. 4 pints, he exclaimed. That's an extremely high price, Miss Thornhart. The money is not an issue, but the blood is another story entirely. Do you have any idea how long it will take me to recover from that? You're asking for a great deal, Mr. Broussard, and I have a business to fund. Besides, you and I both know you just fed, and a man who looks like you will have no trouble finding a willing victim on the strip as soon as you depart my office. This is Vegas, after all, and the freaks do come out at night. Given your appearance and charm, I have no doubt you will be back to full strength within the hour. Besides, think of the glorious stories you will give to the humans to tell their friends of their unforgettable encounter with the handsome, mysterious stranger on the strip who took them into his arms and gave them an experience unlike any other, before mysteriously disappearing into the night. I dare say you will become somewhat of a legend. She waited patiently for his response. The vampire narrowed his eyes as he considered the conditions. You drive a hard bargain, Miss Thornhart. A smirk slowly formed on his lips, but I accept your terms. He stood. I will wire you the money and sign the contract as soon as you email it to me. Given your reputation for outstanding experience, I look forward to the delightful services you will undoubtedly provide. He started towards the door. Mr. Broussard, she called out. The vampire stopped and turned. See my accountant on the way out. The blood must be paid in full before you leave, or the deal is off. As you wish, Miss Thornhart. He lowered his head in acknowledgement and departed. 4 pints, Sawyer whispered. What are you going to do with those? A pint of vampire blood is worth its weight in gold. An infusion of 1 bag will restore youth and give a witch an extra 100 years of life and vitality. I will have no trouble moving those 3 bags. 3? But you asked for 4. Harlow spun a chair around, drumming her fingers on the armrest. The 4th is for me, and those damn crow's feet. I seem to have developed, no doubt from the aggravation and stress of this job. I think it's time I treated myself to a little spa day. Nonsense.